name is Tina and welcome to the G-Sport Hub. And in that, welcome to the second episode of Playoff Check, where we check the playoff. A lot of things happened previous week and a lot of things will happen this week. So besides obviously talking about the games themselves, I'm not only gonna do that. Let me try to add context about what's gonna happen now, because we have 3 games left with 4 teams, and every single match from now on is gonna be an elimination match in a way. Since we have 2 more low bracket matches, which I'm gonna cover in the next episode, and then the big finals, so we have very few matches left. And from the 3 matches we had last week, actually we have seen all possible scenarios. We had like a 3-0 super stomp, we had a 3-1, which was, I'm gonna talk about those, and we had a very, very close 5-game series. First of all, unfortunately, we had to say goodbye to 2 of our teams. Those are CGA, who had a very, very unfortunate pairing. First they played with DFM, then with Sengaku Gaming, so it was very unfortunate because of what happened during the split and because the seeding was a little bit flawed. But sadly, after these 2 matches, they're out of playoffs and out of Worlds contention. And another team who we had to say goodbye is Axis, another very sad story. They had an amazing first match in the playoffs. It was super hyped. Everyone was hyped that maybe this team is gonna do the miracle run. Unfortunately, no. So thank you for the whole year for CJ and Axis, and hope we can see both teams next year as well. And with that, let me jump into the first match, Sengaku Gaming versus CJ Crest Gaming Act. And I don't really want to talk about the match itself, if I'm being honest. It was a 3-0 and it wasn't really close, but I think the match, and especially the interviews afterwards, are very good indications about what's happening with Sengaku, and maybe this is some new information how they're gonna do in the rest of the playoffs. So if you're curious, I translated both the Sengaku Gaming video that they made explaining what happened, and also in the same video there are all the post-game interviews, so check that out. It's a great video. But as for the games, just very briefly, I'm sorry I'm not gonna super go through them. It was Pez who mentioned in the interview that their probably biggest problem right now is that they are not aggressive enough. And even though Andy had a phenomenal performance on Blitzcrank in game 1, he had the perfect hooks, he was very aggressive with them actually. Still, there was a moment that Pez explicitly mentioned when he was trying to engage with Renekton, but he wasn't aggressive enough in the comms, he wasn't calling for this fight, and because of that he basically just gave away a kill. These are the things that maybe won't really matter against a team like CGA, but they're gonna play Fatal next with really good carries like Soul or Tana in the top lane, and if they win that match they're gonna play the Hawks then, so yeah, these are the errors that so far we have not really seen come out against V3 or CJ. They were very transparent about these in that video that I was talking about earlier. I don't want to review the whole thing, I think it's really worth to watch, but it's good to see that they are recognizing these errors. Still, as one would expect, they easily won the game without even dropping their gold lead a single time. As for game 2, I can't say unfortunately anything else. The first 10 minutes were quite uneventful, but then Zeri started getting her kills and the game slipped away from CJ's hands very fast. It is very unfortunate for both Sengaku and CJ that there is such a big power discrepancy. As I said before, because of the DFM drama, there was a win granted to CJ. Realistically, these 2 teams should have been swapped and then everything would have been more balanced. This is what it is. Sengaku dominated the game from start to finish and ended it even faster. And game 3, it was even more dominating. There was one moment that they highlighted in the interviews, and in the light of how they want to be more aggressive, it makes kind of more sense. When they were on the dragon, and deliberately they were like, let's leave the dragon and instead pick up the kill on Samara, who were just wandering around alone from the bot side. Kashin though, their jungler, even in the struggling team, has looked good throughout the whole year. He tried to go for a sneaky steal to maybe bring back the game, but nope. Sengaku in the end was able to close out the series after taking a fast Baron. Easy 3-0. I already mentioned in the previous playoff check that I had this little idea that maybe Sengaku was experimenting throughout the regular season. They had rookies in the top lane and the jungle, and they were doing fine-ish. Obviously not the super team that the current one is. And I had this idea that maybe they were doing it deliberately. And as we know now from this video that I'm mentioning like a third time now, Reaper did say very transparently and very explicitly that he judged that the rookies could not win LJL just yet, and that's why he decided to put back in the main team. And basically that was just a little experiment, but this is now the main team. This is now the team that's screaming. This is the team that want to win LJL. So their next match is gonna be interesting because they're gonna play with Fennel, and if you are there, let's see how Fennel got there, because our next match is Fennel versus Axis. Both Fennel and Axis came up from a very close 5-game series, so this looked like maybe gonna be interesting. It wasn't a 3-0, at least, but the difference was Fennel went 5 games against the Hawks and Axis went 5 games against Burning Core. Now, truth to be told, Fennel was a shaky team throughout this whole split, so there was maybe a little chance that Axis' miracle run is gonna continue, but unfortunately, not today. It has ended. Game 1, it was definitely a Jinx show, even if she didn't start off too hot, dying immediately at level 3. Later on it was Recap's Nico who had amazing ultimates, which almost got the team an ace, and most importantly, gave a lot of gold to Jinx. And this is not to take anything away from Tana, even if in the end it was the Jinx show, he had a fantastic performance, like throughout the whole split. Definitely one of those really fun top laners to watch. Despite Axis trying to stack dragons, unfortunately Fennel's damage was just too much at this point and no one was able to stop the bleeding. In just over 30 minutes, Fennel got off on a great start. Game 2 was actually really interesting because we had a Kayn. Before this game, there were only 4 Kayn matches in the history of LJL, and from those 4, only 1 was a win, but that win was exactly Hachimacha's, and he is keeping his 100% win rate on him. Similarly, Sol and Tana were massive carries from start to finish. Just look at the gold graph. Sol immediately started with the first blood at level 2, and just a little later a triple at the dragon fight. He was unstoppable. And if you know something about Zeri is that, yeah, she scales kinda well, and also that she is kinda known for pentas. And that's exactly what just happened at 15 minutes. This was Sol's second pentakill in the LJL, and even if some people say it's only Zeri, still a penta nonetheless, and just shows how dominant Fennel was in this game. And also I don't want to leave out Tennis Cannon, which is probably gonna be banned for the rest of playoffs. Well, in the end, it was an easy game for Fennel. So, Axis was down 2-0. This is not an unfamiliar situation to them. Literally what happened against BC just the week before. They had to reverse sweep and they were on a great start to do so. In many of these games, it's just enough to look at the end screen and look at the gold graph, and that's gonna tell a lot of the stories. Similar to the first game, just this time around the other team, the Jinx was the one getting fed with 3 kills before 5 minutes. And even though Axis were not that clean in fights compared to Fennel's first game, each time they left with an advantage. With their Belvet jungle also getting her needed kills early on, Axis had a relatively clean road to Baron. Relatively, but eventually they got it and finished the game. Unfortunately for them though, Game 4 wasn't that clean. Actually, it was the only game in the series where we've seen some fluctuation in the gold lead. In the previous ones, just one team snowballed, but we have seen some roller coasters here. We have seen a lot of fights across the board from both teams. They were not clean, but they were fun. Immediately the first Herald, there was a big fight where from both sides 4 people died, almost acing each other. And even though later on he also got some other kills, at 5-0 it still looked like Axis can fight against them. Actually, Sivir was the one with the most damage in this game, played by Axis Valkyrie. So despite the 5-0 Viego, it really wasn't that sure that they're gonna win just yet. And hell, even at 18 minutes, Huglet's Nocturne got a shot down on Viego for 600 gold. This match was as close as it could be, until a Baron fight where Fennel was finally able to get the gold lead and start snowballing through that. Until 28 minutes, when Axis actually almost took back the lead. It was a roller coaster, I'm telling you. They also took Baron, so with the Baron buff they were in a prime position. Oh, until there was a nice engage from Fennel, and it was so unlucky because Axis actually had a really good game. Just that one engage was the one that sealed the deal, and Fennel won the series. These two teams, Sengaku Gaming and Fennel, are gonna face each other in the low bracket, which is gonna be a super hype match since it's gonna be the brothers battle, but I'm gonna talk about that later at the end of this video. For now, let's talk about, finally, DFM versus the Hawks. There's a funny little conversation between Blank and Steel, the opposing junglers, where SAG's jungler Blank said that he remembers after regular season he went out drinking with Steel, and even though Blank lost in alcohol, he is gonna be better in League of Legends, to which DFM Steel responded that no, he is better in both alcohol and League of Legends. This is a very nice little banter before the match, and since it was a 5-game series, this just added extra fuel into these games. 5-game insane banger series. Well, looking at the big picture at least, because game 1 was just total domination from the Hawks. When I was watching this game live, I was genuinely worried for DFM if they even can make finals. DFM AD carry Milan got 1 kill at 4 minutes. At least the risk of a perfect game was already over, but that is basically it for the rest of the game. The Hawks are playing really well as a team. Every single time their team fighting was just immaculate. They got every single objective. All the 4 dragons, DFM couldn't take a single one. And it took just a little over 26 minutes to finish DFM, and it looked like DFM may actually just get 3-0'd. Well, at least it looked like until game 2, in where it was actually quite equal to like almost the very end. Even though the Hawks were able to get the first blood, just like 2 minutes later, it was responded by DFM with their own kill, and this basically went on for a long time, just kills from both sides. The first time DFM was able to get a sizable lead was at 19 minutes when Harp had an amazing engage on Rel, stunned 4 people, and finally DFM could extend their gold lead from that 1 to 2,000 they had so far. Until almost 30 minutes when there was the next time DFM had a nice engage from the Maokai ultimate and could just end the game from there. It was basically 2 team fights that decided the whole game, but DFM's death was greatly exaggerated, or however that meme is, and the series was tied up. I want to say game 3 was very similar to the previous one. Actually, if you look at the gold graph, it was almost exactly the same. Both sides had really good plays. Actually, Kinatsu even had a very good solo bolo on the Utapon in the top lane. But as the game went on and team fights came, we could see why Steel's Poppy was so famous. I even talked about this in the previous playoff check. Slowly but surely, he was able to get leads in these team fights. And even if DFM had a kind of meh Baron, it wasn't the cleanest, if I'm being honest. 25 minutes came, and actually, once again, thanks to Harp, the team was able to find very good picks. Actually, multiple times. And when the Hawks tried to fight back, it was already too late. DFM finished the game just from that push. Okay, so DFM is back. They need 1 more game and they're in the finals. So game 4 comes along and they actually pick up the Milio against Zac Jungle from Blank. This is a very spicy draft. Even though SAG, as you know, went on winning this game, it was not one-sided. And while I'm saying this, the first 20 minutes of the game were not the most eventful. I mean, there were kills from here and there, but the gold lead stayed about the same. I mean, Steel's jungle Laurel had some good picks, and Aphelios was getting fed. So coming into 20 minutes, DFM looked maybe a tiny bit better, but it was not like in previous games. Hell, they even got the Baron, but at what cost? The Hawks' double AD carry comp really started to come online with Dasher's Tristana and Marble's Zaya. Only Ra was able to get away with the Baron buff, but next fight comes, and despite DFM getting the dragon, it was once again a fight won by the Hawks. And this just accelerated after taking the Baron, until, there's gonna be an until, there's a fight that kinda looked first good for DFM, then Marble's Zaya almost cleaned off DFM, so it looked good for SAG. But then Arya on the Azir got a massive shutdown, so with his triple kill it was DFM back in the game. And what word comes now? Until even though DFM getting the Dragon Soul, the double AD carry comp was just too much. They got cornered, and SAG won game 4, bringing us silver scrapes. And you think that moment was hype? Oh boy! Game 5 was just everything I said so far. Now amplify it like 5 times. That was such an insane game. It was almost an hour long and there weren't that many kills. There were like 21 kills in total. The kill count is just a bait. This is such an insane game. Whoever wins this game gets to the finals, which is gonna be offline this year. So the stakes could not have been higher. And SAG's support Vista, because of that, picked up his famous Belvet support. Actually, I've seen some people internationally who were like, oh, this guy picked the Belvet support. Of course they lost. But this couldn't be further from the truth. Belvet was one of Vista's best champions. The Hawks were consistently getting Belvet bans from enemy teams because of Vista's support Belvet. This is one of their most comfort and best picks, and they had it on game 5. We have also seen like 2 Elder Dragons, even though that the Hawks had 3 dragons, the FM's 4. So this is like the most amount of dragons that there could be. This is a long game. I'm pretty sure it broke a lot of records besides the kill count in LJL this year. But just to talk about, I'm gonna highlight some moments. I think you really should watch this game because no matter what I say, it's not gonna make it justice. But it actually started very early on, level 4, Belvet getting the first kill, onto a great start, and then 20 minutes of nothing. I mean, nothing is a big word, obviously there were trades all over the place. Every single team fight, even if they didn't have kills, were super tense. The teams played safe, but it doesn't mean they were not interesting to watch. The first big event for spectators as well happened at 27 minutes, when SAG was doing the Baron and DFM tried to stop it unsuccessfully. SAG got the Baron and with that a few more kills. Even if Jinx died quite early on in the fight, still it was massively in favor of the host. Now if you wonder when the next fight was, yes, and the next Baron. At this point though, keep in mind that DFM already had 3 dragons, but the next 2 dragons were picked up by SAG. So DFM was constantly on soul point and SAG had to be aware that DFM is not picking up that 4th dragon. Now with that being said, they kind of lost the fight afterwards. Even though they picked up LeBlanc, this was not a net positive fight for them. And they immediately had to rotate for dragon because, as I said, DFM was on soul point. The tension was getting higher and higher even though not that many kills were in this match. And unfortunately, at 36 minutes, there was quite a big fail from Vista, if I'm being honest. He was picked off another kill to Arya's LeBlanc. Unfortunately for Vista, it looked like this little blunder may even cause the game for them. There is gonna be back and forth throws. At this point though, DFM looked like being back in control until Arya was kind enough to give back the throw and not really good teleport. But meanwhile, DFM got the dragon, so now they were on Dragon Soul. It was just a Cloud Soul, so whatever. But then comes the Elder Dragon fight. The Elder Dragon is massive, so obviously for this both teams were finally taking risks up until Vista died. So SAG retreated, giving the Elder to DFM. In exchange though, they could get the Baron. I know this is a long game. Almost every single person is at full item. Hell, Dasher even stole the crown on Azir to get Ludens, so we are even seeing mythics swapped. But because of this Baron for SAG, they were able to at least keep the minions intact and not let their base get totally destroyed. Still, they were able to defend, and at 54 minutes, there was a huge mistake from Harp. And actually DFM talked about this exact moment extensively in the interview, which obviously, as you know, you can check out on my channel translated. As Harp said, basically after this moment, for 3 seconds, DFM were just quiet, not a single soul said a single word. It was a really tense moment, and I can just quote basically what DFM said they were talking about in the comms in the interview. Arya's LeBlanc was sent to base to help with the push and make sure that at least Kinetsu's Renekton is going back. But DFM still had to be careful because they were playing 3 versus 4. The standoff went on for a while until Yutapon was able to get a kill on Azir, and from there on they could get the Elder Dragon. Meanwhile, Arya was also destroying the base, so even if DFM were to just wait until the Elder, I think they could have won. But surely sure, they got the Elder, they got the players, and they got the base 3 two DFM are in the finals, in our offline finals. This is gonna be massive, even though I said after the first game that DFM may not even be in the finals. There they are, the first one to qualify there. And what is gonna happen now? That is the big question always. What matches are we gonna see next week? As I alluded to it before, first of all, we're gonna see Sengaku versus Fennel, which is always a super hype matchup because that is the brothers battle. In case you don't know, we actually have siblings in the LJL, as Loken, Sengaku Gaming's AD carry, is the brother of Tana, Fennel's top laner. And they have this super funny story about how they both used to watch anime when they were little, and that's why both of them actually speak Japanese in their first year in the LJL. But now they are against each other, with one of them having tests to go. English grammar is not my strength. One of them is gonna be eliminated. That's what I wanted to say. So on Saturday, you're gonna see Sengaku Gaming versus Fennel. Fennel was a really inconsistent team, but Sengaku Gaming we have only seen against V3 and CJ, so we don't really know what's gonna happen in the match. And afterwards, on Sunday, immediately the winner of this series is gonna play against SAG. Now, that's gonna be the real test, since SAG was really close to beating DFM, even though they screwed up the fight at the end. They were basically just a base push away. So it's really unfair to say that they are much worse than DFM, especially after what we've seen in Game 1. And also it's worth to mention that SAG actually beat Fennel 3-2, but that match was also 3-2, so whoever wins here, if it's Fennel, then revenge time. If it's Sengaku, then Sengaku has the chance to prove themselves that they are not just able to beat the V3s and the CJs, but the Hawks as well. Afterwards, we're going to see the finals. But that is for the next episode of Playoff Check. I really hope you liked this video, and actually since then we have also seen the LJL Academy finals, so congratulations to whoever won. We are very far away from next year, but should be interesting. I'm gonna have a lot of LJL coverage for Worlds, and I'm gonna have a lot of LJL coverage for Asian Games as well, because the Asian Games is gonna happen. So a lot of interesting things to come. Make sure to follow our Twitter, G Sport Hub. We're gonna post everything that's happening. And yeah, I was Tina. I hope this episode was fun. Watch LJL because the stakes are not gonna be lowered. It's only going up from now on. 3 more matches remaining, 4 more teams, and only 1 to go to Worlds. See you next week. Bye bye.